I'm Julia Minnesone, and of course, Cam Ward is the first one at the facility, but does he have the right weapons around him to improve the offense this year? We'll talk about it.
I'm Tyler Rowland, and speaking of weapons, sounds like in the draft, we're back to Love Island, baby.
Just weeks away from the draft, and I haven't had a trade up until today. We'll see what happens.
Tighten up. It's the Titans Squad. Everything Tennessee Titans every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Music City, the way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Squad up. The Titans Squad Show starts now.
And welcome to the Titans Squad Show. As you heard off the top, I'm Julia Minnesone. That's Tyler Rowland and Brad Hopkins. We got a jam-packed show for you guys today. We're going to talk, of course, the NFL draft as it gets closer and closer for the Tennessee Titans as they're on the clock, and maybe talk about some trade scenarios that we like or dislike here in the draft. We're also going to talk about the weapons around Cam Ward, particularly Wan'Dale Robinson and his impact in that wide receiver room. But first, I wanted to talk something that was owners meeting related / draft related, fellas. So at the owners meeting, Robert Saleh mentioned that he likes what they have in the running back room as of right now, the 1-2 punch of Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears. So that got a lot of people wondering, well, does that mean Jeremiyah Love is off the board for the Titans? But let me ask you guys this, because there are a ton of mock drafts still having the Titans taking Jeremiyah Love. Do you buy what Robert Saleh is saying, or is he still a viable option for the Tennessee Titans? Tyler.
Well, Robert Saleh looked me dead in the eye at the NFL Combine and talked about how T'Vondre Sweat could potentially fit in his defense, and it's going to be hard for him, and it's going to be difficult, but we think he could do it, you know what I mean? And then he was traded about 3 days later. So I got to tell you, I do not believe Robert Saleh, and I talked about that, myself in my own content immediately after some of those comments were made, both Borgonzi talking and Robert Saleh talking, and it is smokescreen season, folks, and it would make no sense. Why would the Titans tip their hand? Why would Robert Saleh go out there and say, yeah, we love our running back room, and that means we're not taking Jeremiyah Love, everyone, just so everyone knows what we're doing and knows what our move is. Why would you ever? It's like poker. Why would I show you any of my cards ahead of time, even if it's just one, even if I don't show you all two? You know what I mean? Like, why would I do that ever? So I can't take it for face value. I think he's being honest. He does like his running back room, but people using that comment to mean something about the draft or they won't take Jeremiyah Love or anything, I think that's probably a step too far. And why would they give that information out right now? None of it makes sense.
Okay, so maybe we should be holding ourselves as media members more accountable and stop asking dumb questions that they give these softball pedestrian answers to. I'm tired of it, basically. We're gonna skew Robert Saleh for saying what any head coach or general manager would say. Just like you said, Tyler, they're not going to give you any information. So how about this? Come up with a better question. When you lay your head down at night before you're actually set to get into these conversations, these meetings with these coaches, come up with something creative. Come up with something that isn't so obvious that they're going to answer in a certain way. Hey, you're going to win tomorrow? What? You know what I mean? Hey, who are you going to draft tomorrow? What? I mean, come up with something more creative than making these coaches answer questions that obviously, when it gets to us, it's taken out of context. It's not like Robert Saleh got up there, took a drink of his bottle of water and said, hey, you know what? I love my running back room. No, he was asked the question about it. Maybe the direction of the draft and what they're thinking about it. They're not going to tell you anything. So come up with something better than that. At least tickle my senses with something that's not so obvious as a softball question that they're going to give you a softball answer to. And then somehow we look at these guys like they're well, he's just not going to say anything. Well, of course he's not going to say anything. What do you expect them to do? Take a snapshot of their war room and put it up there on the Jumbotron for it to take a look at and dissect and for the other team to take a look at? It's not competitive. It's dumb. So with all that, we don't need the pick of Jeremiyah Love because just like Robert said, we've got a 1,000-yard back in the backfield. That's what you want. We've got a guy that's flexible in the backfield or outside of the backfield, and a couple of guys, Tyjae Spears being one of them. Tyjae Spears was like 6 or 7 catches less than our leading receiver, which was the tight end, mind you, Chigakonkwo. But needless to say, he was involved in the pass game. So they had the elements that obviously Jeremiah Love would bring to the table already established in their locker room. The thing is, you entertain it because Jeremiah Love is an extremely good player, period. Not because you need him. Julian, you and I talked on Friday about smart picks versus fun picks. A fun pick is somebody that is exciting to watch. Obviously, it has to make sense because he's got to be a good player. You just wouldn't take a flyer on number 4 for a bum. You wouldn't do that. But in essence, Tony Pollard has given you 1,000 yards for 4 straight years on a 3-win team last year. So he's doing the job that Jeremiah Love would only hope to do, right? Which is at least rush for 1,000 yards. But there's no guarantees. So just to me, it seems like if we ask better questions, we have to stop with these silly old debates about what they're going to do in the backfield and this and that and the third. I mean, of course, this is for us to discuss, right? But not for them to kind of put credence to. You can't go to the source and ask him what the hell he's going to be doing at a draft pick because they're not going to tell you, and nor would you expect them. Because put it this way, what if you said, hey, Robert, Brad Hopkins, Titan Squad Show, who are you guys picking in the draft? We're going to pick Jeremiah Love. Next question. You'd be like, whoa, did he just really tell us what he's going to pick? We wouldn't believe him. Right. Why wouldn't we believe him? Because it doesn't seem smart for a coach to do that. So why are we asking the question?
Yeah, well, and also, I mean, what is he going to say? Oh, I don't like Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, because if those end up being the backs that are on the roster and they don't take Jeremiah Love, he's going to have to be happy with those two guys. Let me ask you this then, fellas. Given Ashton Genty as an example of last year, right, where the Raiders take a running back and clearly the roster is not in a place where the running back can be effective or as effective as they want him to be. Is this roster ready for a Jeremiah Love should they pick him?
No, of course not. Of course, like the reason that the Lions picked Jahmyr Gibbs at 12 and it worked out is because they actually had some things on their roster already. They were a good roster with offensive line, defensive line. They had a quarterback in place. They had some weapons on the outside. They could get the cherry on top of the sundae. That's why that worked. The Titans are not in that position, but let's be honest. This draft is not as good at the top as most drafts. All the edge rushers have questions. The best players are non-premium guys. So I think like with the Peter Skoronski draft, when I made the argument, yeah, you don't want to take a guard at number 11 typically, but in that draft class, go back and find the offensive lineman who ended up being significantly better than him that was drafted around where he was supposed to be drafted. It made sense for that draft class, and he's turned into a very good player. So I think the Titans really aren't going to have a lot of choice in the conversation that we're having, because I think most of us acknowledge, yeah, the edge rushers would be great, right? If they were to get David Bailey, Reuben Bain, Arvell Reese were to fall to them. But it sounds like as we get closer to the draft and things get a little more concrete, Arvell Reese and David Bailey probably going to be off the board before the Titans get to 4. And we're never going to have that answer of would they take a Bailey or a Reese or Jeremiah Love. And now we're hearing, like literally this morning, Daniel Jeremiah saying that the Titans are not a Reuben Bain team. He's heard from multiple people around the league that the Titans are not a Reuben Bain team. They would not take Reuben Bain. And the arm length thing matches up with what Saleh wants on his defense, so you could reasonably make that connection. Okay, I could see how they aren't a Reuben Bain team. He could potentially be an inside power rusher. They have a lot of that right now with Simmons and JFM, and it all does make sense if they weren't a Reuben Bain team. So if Reese and Bailey go off the board and they aren't interested in Reuben Bain, who logically would be the next guy? And it's probably Jeremiah Love. You know what I mean? So it's like we've sat here and made all these excellent arguments about why it would be edge rusher, and they might not even get a chance to take one of the guys that we think that they would take over Love. And we'll never know whether they would take Love or those guys ever. They'll just never get that situation. So, everybody's right here, but I do think that, we do got to see the other side, of course, as we all have discussed, that in this draft class, when there aren't a lot of big premium positions to take, I think Love may be the pick to get those weapons around Warden. As we transition into the wide receiver conversation eventually, I think that makes it more obvious. But what about Carnell Tate? He doesn't get into the conversation very much, and it sounds like he might have some momentum, according to recent reports, to get into the top 5. I think the Titans might be faced with Carnell Tate or Jeremiah Love as the actual question at the top of the draft, rather than edge or Love. I think it might be Tate or Love at the end of the day.
So why are we even talking about addressing running back? Because Derrick Henry's not here. Why isn't Derrick Henry here? Because the line didn't block better for him to make him tradable, basically. Saquon Barkley rushed for over 2,000 yards the year they won the Super Bowl. Why didn't he rush for 2,000 yards this year? I mean, has he forgotten how to run the football? I mean, are they doing different things schematically, or is the line not blocking as well as they had the year before? So in other words, the running back position, and this, albeit for me to say this, is susceptible. It's susceptible to all kinds of changes that happen on a team from one year to the next that make him vulnerable. Because just like quarterbacks, running backs are only as good as the guys in front of them. I don't care how fast you are. I don't care how big and strong you are. At the end of the day, if you're running into a brick wall, you're not going to be able to get through it. You need somebody to carve out gaps in that brick wall for you to be able to run through. And that's the difference between, you'll never see me discount a running back because I understand how important the running game actually is to having an effective offense. And matter of fact, I would probably say they're the most important player, second to the quarterback on a roster, because you got to have, guys that are capable of running the football. But in essence, it is predicated on those things around you. Now, it's not to say that edge rusher isn't predicated on it, but I know that guy's out there on an island. An edge rusher is. And it's up to him to get past that guy that's on the other side of the football. And if he's so good, he might have to get through 2 or 3 guys to get to him. But the point being, it's mano-a-mano. It's never mano-a-mano with a running back. So I'm not discounting the value of a running back. I never would do that. But when you look at just what really makes sense, and I'll continue. I'll actually, get further in detail as to why it makes sense as we get into our couple of other segments, because there are points that I would need to make for us maybe not even taking them before.
It's like putting a lobster on your steak, right? Like, man, that lobster is exquisite. You get the butter on it on top of your steak with a steak dinner and the potatoes on the side, a little bit of greens. You know what I mean? Something, it's incredible. It takes it, or a black truffle on top. Oh, man, we're taking this to the next level. The Caesar salad they make by your table. But do you need that? Do you really need that? Isn't that kind of splurging? That's the running back to me. The running back is the lobster on top of a great steak dinner. Like, it takes it to the next level. It's probably the most fun thing to eat on the plate. But you could get a great meal without having that on top. You don't need that little topper there. So it's just like, are the Titans ready to splurge and add that topper? And probably not. But again, if recent reports are to be believed in any way with a large grain of salt on top of them, the Titans may just have to take Jeremiyah Love because the 2 edge rushers worth it are going to be off the board. So that just may be where they're at anyway. So we could talk about the merits, and I agree with you guys. Like, I prefer the edge rushers to taking a running back in the draft. But ultimately, if the 2 edge rushers are off the board and they don't like Ruben Bain, the top of my board would be Jeremiyah Love. At that point, I'd take him over Carnell Tate. So it's like, at that point, is it Sonny Styles? Is it Caleb Downs? Yeah. Is it Carnell Tate? Is it Jeremiyah Love? Out of that group, I would pick Jeremiyah Love. So if that's what it comes down to, we could talk about all these smart things about running back, but still, even with all that being said, I'm taking Jeremiyah Love if that's what I'm left with on the board.
Yeah.
You take Emmett Johnson at number 4?
No, I wouldn't.
Would you take Jadarian Price at number 4?
No, I would not.
Right. There's only one dude in this whole damn draft
He's special
that high.
Yes.
That's the caveat. The reason why we're having this discussion is because the guy is Jeremiyah Love, not because it's a running back.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. That's the best point of it all right there is, and when I talked about the running back class as one of my draft preview episodes, I said, if the Titans don't take Jeremiyah Love, I don't want to take running back until day 3. 4th round, 5th round, 6th round, because it's not like running back is a need. You know what I mean? Like, you're right. Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears is a good duo. I would say that's an average duo in the NFL. That's not one of the worst running back rooms in the NFL. It's not like running back is a desperate need for the Titans. The reason we're talking about Jeremiyah Love is, like you said, Brad, because he's so special. And the draft class isn't that great up at the top, which increases his value. So all of those factors in together, again, if Reese and Bailey are off the board and they truly are not a Ruben Bain team, then to me, I'm fine with taking Jeremiyah Love. I would like the pick. I mean, I'd like the pick either way because he's a good player. But if that really is the board, the argument is Carnell Tate or Sonny Styles or Caleb Downs. And I think there are a lot of people, if you had to split up the Titans fan base and everyone who talks about the Titans, who would you take out of those 4 guys? I think most people are in the love bucket, but I think it might be a little more consistent than you would think.
It's so funny because we're talking about, being pro edge, right? But if the Titans just have to get Jeremiyah Love, it's not like that's a consolation prize either. The dude is the best player in the draft. So it feels like the Titans are going to get a good player either way. Right. So that's the good thing. Also, Tyler, steak and lobster, we need to get invited to the dinner where you're at, wherever you're having dinner, because I have not had steak and lobster, and you haven't mentioned steak and lobster to B-Hop either. So I don't know. You're holding out on
lonely podcaster. We got the TV star, the NFL legend. You guys know where to eat.
Think about though. Tyler didn't say a burger with some good fries.
He said black truffle.
This brother went,
hey, I like to eat, man. I like the finer things. Oh man, hey, I am who I am. I enjoy it.
All right. Well, we are going to talk about some of the weapons around Cam Ward, particularly the new one they added this offseason in Wan'Dale Robinson. Is he enough to add to the Titans receiver room and the offensive weapons for us to feel good? Yeah, if you're watching on video, Tyler teased it a little bit right there. That's next year on the Titans Squad Show. This episode is brought to you by Betterhelp. Financial stress is something a lot of people are carrying right now, and it's not just about numbers. It can affect your sleep, your relationships, and your overall mental health in ways that build up over time. And really, the reality is struggling with money doesn't mean you failed. Sometimes it just means you haven't had the right kind of support. It's something I've thought about, how easy it is to put pressure on yourself financially without really talking about it. The stress that comes with trying to figure everything out on your own, the expectation that you have to have everything together. Yeah, now therapy isn't about financial advice. It's about working through stress, the anxiety, and the emotions that come with it. With over 30,000 licensed therapists and more than 6 million people served, BetterHelp makes it easier to get matched and start focusing on what you need. Now, when life feels overwhelming, therapy can help. Sign up and get 10% off at betterhelp.com/lockedon. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, guys. So I wanted to talk about the receiver room because I thought about it when seeing Cam Ward coming into the facility today and the weapons he's going to have around him. Obviously, they're returning some of the young pieces in Chim DK, Alec Iomanner, Calvin Ridley returning on a restructured contract, but they gave the payday to Wan'Dale Robinson. So they are not asking him to come in here and be a decoy. Of course, there's the familiarity in Brian Dable's system. So I ask you guys this. Wan'Dale, though there is that familiarity and he had over 1,000 yards last year, are you okay with him being the only receiver, the only maybe new offensive weapon that the Titans bring in, let's say if they don't draft a Jeremiyah Love?
No. No. That is my answer. You cannot say that we got Cam Ward some help. Wan'Dale Robinson. You know what I mean? Like, what are we really doing here? They have to, I have said this, they have to get a wide receiver with one of their first 3 picks. They have no choice. There are too many people in that group, whether, we know the guys at the top who, unless they trade back, I don't think they're taking wide. Maybe Tate at 4. Maybe they surprise us. They take Tate at 4 over Jeremiyah Love. Maybe they do that. All right. I don't know. They could. But whether it's Mekhi Lemon, who I don't really think is a fit, to be honest with you, because of Wan'Dale Robinson, Chim DK, Calvin Ridley. They have too many players who can play in the slot. But like Casey Concepcion, Omar Cooper, Denzel Boston. Okay, maybe those guys all go in the first round, with Tate and Tyson. They all go in the first round. Well, then you have, Chris Brazzell and Chris Bell and Zach Branch, who I don't think is a fit either for the same reasons as Mekhi Lemon. But again, he's in that bucket. Sure. Jeremy Bernard, who I think would be a very good number 2 wide receiver to get at 66 if he happens to be there. Ted Hurst. I don't think Antonio Williams is a fit, but he's in there. Skylar Bell, Elijah Surratt. Like, they have no choice. They have to get a wide receiver. If they're not taking Carnell Tate at number 4, then at 35, if one of those top guys falls, like a Denzel Boston, I don't know about Chris Brazzell or Chris Bell that high. If you trade back in the second, and if you don't take any of those, you get to 66. You need to take a Jeremy Bernard, a Ted Hurst, a Skylar Bell. If they happen to, they just have to they can't wait like they did last year until day 3 and then just throw a bunch of darts at it again. That was a good way to get depth last year, but now we need some actual talent out there. So that's my position at wide receiver. Is Wan'Dale Robinson is not enough, and because that's all they did, they have now. There are some rumors and whispers out there that they're interested in Stephon Diggs. So I don't know that I would be interested in that. That seems pretty risky to bring into the locker room with everything he's got going on. But, he was good for the Patriots last year as an older guy. So it's clear if that's to be believed, they need to do more at wide receiver, and they should know it.
B-Hop.
I do like Zachariah Branks, though. I got him as a first rounder.
I like him too. I like it. He's just a slot guy, a 5'8" slot guy like Wandale. And I'm like, would they have two? I was a big Branch guy before free agency for sure.
Yeah. Well, first off, my prediction is that the Titans take a wide receiver at number 35. I mean, that's still a really good skill position player.
Yes.
Now, looking at Wandale Robinson specifically, he had over 1,000 yards receiving, like you mentioned, Julian, last year. But that's only because Malik Neighbors played in only 4 games. Period.
And 140 targets. Yeah, a lot of targets.
He's not the feature receiver. And at this point, Calvin Ridley, can we trust him to be the feature receiver? We've got to see that. When he's healthy, he's awesome. But he hasn't been consistent. So they have to maybe catch by committee, you know what I mean? Which does include the draft pick I just mentioned, and which does include Alec Ayumanner, and also does include Tajay Spears, who caught 11 less, like I mentioned, than Chig Okonkwo last year. So I do feel that it's not like Wandale Robinson's his abilities are being questioned or anything like that. But just when you're looking at how Brian's going to use him, there's going to be a number of different. I don't think he's going to be feeding Wandale Robinson like he did up in New York for a period with all those targets, because there are a lot of options, and I think that we have to afford ourselves to be less predictable. So that means involving a lot of different things, and unless we just line it up and punching cats in the mouth and we just control the line of scrimmage and we've got this balance of running and passing that's like 50-50 and you don't know what we're going to be doing. We got play action, all this other stuff, until that's established, I think that this is going to be a situation where we don't look at Wandale Robinson like he's the guy that rushed that caught for 1,000 yards last year. I just don't think he's that guy in this offense.
You don't want him to be that guy in a good offense. You know what I mean? Like if you're going to be a really good offense and a good team, Wandale Robinson isn't getting 1,000 yards and 140 targets.
At the slot.
The slot, yeah. Well, then let me ask you this, guys, because this is the argument maybe against Jeremiah Love at number 4 as well, in the sense that, okay, you want a receiver within maybe those first 3 rounds. Then if you pick Love at 4, what position are you willing to sacrifice either at 35 or 66? Do you sacrifice taking that edge that you still need? Do you sacrifice the interior offensive line that you still need? So if it is wide receiver early and Love is the pick at 4, what are you waiting on then? What are you pushing off to those later rounds?
It's a math problem, right? Because if you go running back early, like you said, and you want to get a wide receiver in the top 3 rounds, and you need a speed rusher because you don't really have a starting one right now, well, you go Jeremiah Love, edge rusher at 35. What if there aren't any good wide receivers left at 66? What if Ted Hurst isn't there and you're down to, Deion Burks and Dazon Stribling and Elijah Surratt, Bryce Lance? You don't want to take those guys at 66. And you need a starting interior offensive lineman. As a matter of fact, you need 2. Right now, you don't have a starting guard or a starting center. Now, in my opinion, I think it's going to be easier to find a starting center in this draft. I think they could get a starting center at pick 101. Like, I think that they could do
Logan Jones, Jake Slaughter, somebody like that. Yeah.
Matt Gublin, there's a Parker Brailsford. There's about 9 centers that if they get one of those 9 centers, they might have a starting center from day one. That's risky, though, to think you're getting a starter in the 4th round. But, I mean, that's where they're at. But, again, you're right. And that is why I've continued to say a trade down is actually the best thing that could happen for the Titans. If you trade down in this draft, so what if you get to, like with the Cowboys, you get to 11 or 12 or, 13, 14. I would go to 22. Or something like that, and just rack up, because there's so much depth in this class at the positions that you need, but there isn't a lot of top-tier blue-chip prospects at those positions. So the best thing they could do is trade down, fix this math problem that we're talking about, where they have 4 top 100 picks. They can get a wide receiver, they can get an edge, they can get an interior offensive lineman, and then they have a bonus pick to get linebacker or maybe one of the running backs if they want to, or another interior offensive lineman, or maybe get the offensive tackle of the future. They can do so many different combinations if they have 4 picks instead of 3 in the top 100, and then you have 101, which is kind of like a 5th. Like, a trade down is obviously the best because they need a lot right now. I just think I know it's a rant here, but I think people get really excited after free agency, and especially with the new jerseys, the new stadium coming, people are very excited, and I see it in the comments. The Titans are winning 10 games. We're going to the playoffs. Kyle Brandt's on the stage screaming, who's going to make the playoffs out of the top 5? And I'm like, well, the Giants. The Giants have a really good, it's the Titans. Yeah, the Titans. You know what I mean? Like, I just think everybody's really, really excited right now, so they are like, oh, the Titans don't have that many holes. Let's get Jeremiyah Love. The roster's in a good – they traded for Jermaine Johnson. They got Wandale, all this stuff, But I still don't think the roster is in a very good place, in my opinion. So I am not on that optimism high that a lot of people are, and it leads me to see things differently. So, no, I don't think they need to stick and pick and take a blue-chip talent that I don't think is either that valuable or actually a blue chip. Trade down. Trade down. That's the best thing that they could do.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, well, there's a reason why you're picking that high in the first place, because you sucked the year before, period. Unless you're giving up a draft and you're moving up from, something respectable that high in the draft because you really, really like a guy. Let's just say, Matthew Stafford decided to retire next year. Or no, he decided to retire this year, which puts the Rams in a pickle, right? I might pick up the phone and ask Las Vegas, hey, man, what would it take to get Fernando? Just because I really need a quarterback, but I'm picky in the 20s. You see what I'm saying? That's the only reason why that would make sense for a guy, for a good team to pick that high.
And the Rams have been aggressive in trading.
There's a reason why you're picking that high, because you suck. Now, the thing is, with the 4th pick, let's just say a top 5 pick for even numbers, even though number 4 is an even number. I get that. There are 32 players going to go in the first round. Not all 32 players are valid of a top 5 pick. And they're all first rounders, but they're built different. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, really good players are tasked with going to really bad teams because they're really good players that are going to go higher in the draft, but to those teams that have struggled or are definitely worthy of picking in the top 5 because they were bad. So I know that we're kind of steering towards our next segment and the discussion about the Titans moving down. But if you think about it, there's a little less ease, a little less anxiety in the pick when you move out of that spot. And the reason being is because there are more players that you have to pick from lower than 5, because there's only a certain number of players that you would actually even be looked at as halfway smart to take in the top 5. Fernando Mendoza, Jeremiyah Love, David Bailey, Carnell Tate, Caleb Downs. Those are maybe some guys that if you took in the top 5, everybody's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. But if you took Connor Liu or Caleb Lomu, what? Connor Liu, absolutely not. Peter Clemens, what? You know what I'm saying? You're not going to take these guys with that pick, even though they're really good players. I just said that I like Zach Branch, right? Would you take Zach Branch at number 4? Hell no, you wouldn't take Zach Branch at number 4. But he's a first rounder. You see what I'm saying? So they're built different, which does lend to the conundrum that we have. Is like what we do at number 4. Do we take a player that is definitely worthy of a top 5 pick, or do we try and fit a guy in that top 5 pick that really solves a need and makes sense for us to take him that high?
Yeah, it's a conundrum for sure. And we're already teasing it. So we're just going to move on to that next segment of the trade scenarios for the Tennessee Titans, because I know you guys are itching to talk about what are some of the better scenarios and what are some of the scenarios, man, got to stay away from if you're Mike Borgonzi. That's next year on the Titans Squad Show. Keep it here. All right, don't forget to check out the Everydayer Club for ad-free episodes and access to a group chat with Tyler and other listeners of the show. Tap the link in the show notes or go to the URL right there on your screen. And if you're not on video with us and you're on audio, it's lockedonpodcasts.com/everydayer. That's lockedonpodcasts.com/everydayer. All right, fellas, we talked about the trade scenarios and stuff like that. I wanted to bring it back to something Tyler said earlier about you. Tyler, you're more open when it comes to the edges of Arvell Reese or David Bailey than you were maybe with a Ruben Bain. However, what if the Titans were to trade back, and if they still need an edge, would you be more open to Bain later in that top 10 than you would at number 4? If a trade down scenario does happen, then you get your edge and you're not picking, like Brad said, the value pick of having to match the value of a top 5 talent.
For the record, I like Ruben Bain better than David Bailey. I was just telling you what Daniel Jeremiah was saying recently that he heard the Titans were not a Bain team. I love Ruben Bain. I think he's absolutely fantastic. Yeah, if the Titans were able to trade down and get Ruben Bain, I think we're absolutely cooking. But the problem is, the arm length, he may not be their cup of tea. So whether they trade down or not, they may just not be interested in him because Robert Saleh really cares about arm length on the defensive line. And Ruben Bain, as everyone knows at this point, does not have long arms to the point where, again, there's been nobody drafted in the last 20 years who had a double-digit sack season with arms as short as his. So, I think that matters to the Titans. I do believe the reporting on that they don't like Bain. So I would love Bain. So, yes, if they did that. But the problem is after those guys, I don't like any of the edge rushers until much later. I am not high on Akeem Messidor, especially for the Titans, because he's an older player. He's another guy who rushes from the inside as well. He just doesn't fit what the Titans need. I don't really like Keldrick Falk. Again, a guy who I think is an inside-outside type guy, big, strong, young. He's like Michael Williams, who the 49ers drafted last year, but I just don't see that fit on the Titans defense with what they need right now. And then, TJ Parker, he's kind of a fringe second round, first rounder. Malachi Lawrence, are you going to take him as high as 14, 15, 16, something like that? I guess maybe so. I just don't. After those top three edge rushers, I don't see any edge rushers that are worth it to take in the middle of the first round if they do trade back, 10 or so spots. But I think the Ravens are a team that could come up. The Cowboys are a team that could come up. So that kind of range is very well where they'll probably end up if they do get a trade back. The Jets at 16, of course, have extra picks. You know what I mean? So the Dolphins at 11, I think that's the range, 11 to 16, where if they move back a decent amount, it's going to be in there. And I don't see a good fit for edge in that area if they're not interested in Bain and he's not there.
The Commanders are at number 7. They need some love in their backfield. They'll trade up with the Titans at number 4. We'll be picking at number 7. And who told Daniel Jeremiyah anything about Ruben Bain? Reveal your source. Because at this point,
you can't do that.
Right, you can't do that. You can't do that. But then again, I'm not going to trust anything that anybody says that's not sitting in that war and that's not sitting in that war room. And you're not going to get that kind of information. So this is hyperbole. This is what that is. The Titans aren't in on Ruben Bain. Who the hell told you that? At the end of the day, we don't know what the Titans are thinking about any of these edge rushers. But I do know this. Ruben Bain is a top 10 pick. If we don't grab him, somebody will.
Yeah.
Sure. But at this point, if we move down to number 7, where number 7 makes sense, 4 might be a stretch to grab a Ruben Bain. It might be a stretch. And the only reason why you take a Ruben Bain is why? Because David Bailey's off the board. David Bailey will be gone by number 7. So at the end of the day, you're not going to take Akeem Messidor. You see what I'm saying? You're not going to take that guy. Arvell Reese is a linebacker and edge rusher, and he's going to be gone to the Jets at number 2, so he won't even be available. The point being, fellas, I'm not going to make this a more confusing conversation by saying somebody said that he's not one of our guys. Shut up. Because at this point, we don't know anything about what they're thinking. And that's the way I think about it. Being a guy that, look, short arms, are you kidding me? You think this much of a different in his ability? Not a chance. I know I wouldn't want to block Ruben Bain, short arms or not. Because at the end of the day, guess what? We're having this conversation about a guy that's a top 10 pick whose arms have been short since he started playing football.
Yeah.
So somehow he's found a way to be productive with short arms. And I guarantee you he's going to have a nice little career in the National Football League with those short arms. So let's not that be the caveat. We didn't take him because his arms were an inch shorter than everybody else's. Are you serious right now? Oh, that's the guy that just sacked your quarterback 3 times. You know what I mean? That's it. I've seen guys with shorter arms that have extreme power that then somehow overcome their shortcomings. And I'm not trying to be funny, but that's the point I'm trying to make. So at the end of the day, I'm not buying into anything anybody tells you about. My sources say, because who's that guy that's the leak? Who's that guy that's giving the public this information about what we're doing in our locker room? If that's the case, I'm trying to figure out if that somehow gets back to me and I'm listening through the tea leaves about what's going on in my war room, I'm going to have a meeting with every one of my staff. And I'm going to say, which one of y'all is the leak? And assume I already know. It'll be easier for you if you raise your hand so that way we can fire you eloquently versus me dragging you through and you never getting another job anywhere else because you are a big mouth that can't keep your mouth shut. It's probably one of the reasons why half the coaching staff keeps things tight to the vest within their own building, because we know they're snitches that somehow like to give out information and little tidbits about what a team's doing. Find that guy, get him out.
And what I say for the argument for Ruben Bain, B-Hop, is go back and tell me, out of all the players that have had short arms, how many were as good as Ruben Bain in college as well? Like coming out of college, like that's the other thing that you have to keep in consideration with this is Ruben Bain. The tape is the tape. He was still pretty darn effective on a defense that played for a national title game. And so, if there's any, I guess, reservations about the short arms, there you go. Now, well, Titan
Robert
Max
Saleh said that too.
Little caveat, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Shorter arms are stronger. Period.
Yes, they are, Brad. Yes, they are. Let's go. Yes, they are. Let's go. I'm glad you said that. You're freaking right, Brad. Brad Hopkins, the GOAT.
You're not going to see some long arm basketball player throwing up 225 40 times, are you? No, nope. You're not. And it's even harder for long arm tackles to do that, right? But when you're short and compact and you built like a fire hydrant, you're getting after it. So trust me, as a guy with long arms, it's hard to be effective like that. But these guys with short arms, they're going to hit you straight in the mouth and use that power that God gave them with them little short arms.
And he didn't have like 30-inch arms, but wasn't Aaron Donald's arms considered under like the threshold for short arms too? And I'm pretty sure that worked out.
Right, but that point that you're making there actually lends to some people's point that Bain needs to be an interior player. Like he needs to be a pass rushing interior player. And the reason that Aaron Donald worked is because he was on the interior. So the argument is, Ruben Bain could be like that, but he'll have to do it on the interior because the arms aren't long enough. Again, it's just the trend. You guys are making the argument for Ruben Bain, and I'm like cheering. I love Ruben Bain. I think they should take him at 4, just if we are to believe whatsoever and just to entertain the possibility that maybe the report is right. Maybe they are not fans of Ruben Bain. Then what would happen? Then who would they take? And if they trade back to 11, 12, 14, 16, he's not going to be on the board anymore anyway. Now, if they trade back to 7, he probably would be. Would they take a Tate? Would they take a Styles? Would they take, one of those guys, a Downs over Bain? Then we would get our answer on whether they're actually into Ruben Bain or not. But will we get that answer? I don't know. But either way, all these conversations we're having, the trade back, again, I'm going to continue. The trade back is the way to go because if they can get, these guys who there's like 10 dudes who people think might be worth going in the top 5 or 8 dudes who might be worth going in the top 5. If they could get one of them at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, you know what I mean? That's how you win. We got an extra top 100 pick. Maybe we got a first rounder next year, and we got Sonny Styles, who some people thought could go 5 or thought we would take it 4. That's how you win the draft right there. If you're Mike Borgonzi, getting one of these, because I think there's, and everybody will be different, but I think there's about 12 guys who, if the Titans get them, I'm happy with it. Now, not everyone I'd be happy with at number 4. Some people would have to be a trade back, but I'd still be like, wow, they got one of the best players in the draft. There's Love, Tate, in my opinion, Tyson. I love Jordan Tyson. And if you trade back, the injury concern isn't as big of a deal because you traded back. You know what I mean? So that's like, Love, Tate, Tyson, and then Bain, Reese, Bailey. You got to throw Mendoza in there, which is like 7. Downs, Styles, and then the cornerbacks, Delane and Jermod McCoy, who just came out and ran a blazing fast 40 showing that he's healed. And if he didn't tear his ACL, he would be a higher pick than Jermod McCoy might have been a top 5 pick this year he was slated to be that. So if the Titans trade back to, 10, 12, 11, 13, and they get one of those, 11, 12 guys plus some extra capital, isn't that wouldn't you take Jermod McCoy plus a first-round pick next year plus an extra third-round pick over just Jeremiyah Love or just Ruben Bain or just David Bailey? It's a combo value that I could not turn down. And I think the Ravens at 14 have some of the most picks. The Dolphins at 11 have some of the most picks. The Jets have 2 first-rounders and multiple picks next year. The Cowboys at 12 have all those picks next year and 2 first-rounders this year. You mentioned the Commanders, who don't have as many picks, but might be willing to just move up because they did a lot of work other places. The Saints are always a team that looks to trade up. The Saints are always aggressive and make moves to trade up the board. The Chiefs have 2 first-round picks. There's an ample amount of teams that would have the ammo to make some kind of move if Reese were to fall to 4 or Love falls to 4, Bailey falls to 4. Someone wants Tate because he's the only clean wide receiver. I just think a trade is gonna be ripe for it. I just hope Arizona doesn't trade before them.
Yeah, that's true, because there have been some mock drafts, in particular Bruce Feldman's from The Athletic last week, that had the Cowboys trading up with the Cardinals to take David Bailey at number 3 overall. So there's that too, because that's based on, again, to be honest, intel from around the league that Bruce Feldman made that mock draft. Okay,
Styles anybody to replace Michael Parsons. Keep it moving.
There you go. All right. Well, on the other side of the break, we're going to take some questions and comments here on our Titans Talk segment. Don't go anywhere. All right, fellas, when we're talking about trade down scenarios, there is one that I've seen that I actually really, really like. And of course, you have to have the other party involved. And Tyler mentioned it. And Titans Maximum 239 mentioned it. Trading with the Chiefs for 9 and 29. You get the 9th pick and the 29th pick for the 4th pick.
Dang, 2 first rounders. Huh?
Yeah.
I think I'd need a little cherry on top with a day 3 pick.
Okay, you want more.
Moving on. Yeah. I mean, look, historically speaking, if you look at like what Arizona got, if you look at other trade, like you're not just going to get equal value if you put it into a trade chart. You're moving up to get a coveted player, which is why you're moving up in the first place, and you're trying to jump 5 spots into the top 5. That is historically an expensive trade. So if they did like 9, 29, and a 3rd rounder for 4 and 101, I'd do that. Okay. That's the kind of move, like, I just need a little bit more than just 9 or 29, because historically teams get a little bit more. Go back and look when Houston jumped up to Arizona, that was 12 all the way to 3. So that would give you more than that. But they got 2 first-round picks. They got a 2nd and a 3rd. You know what I mean? Like, those are big-time moves. So 9 and 29 plus a 3rd. I'll give you number 4 and a 4th. That's a deal that I would make. Now we have 5 picks.
Would you take Akeem Mesidor at number 9?
No, I'm out on Mesidor completely at any point in the draft, and here's why. He is a guy who rushes inside and outside, and I think with John Franklin Myers, Jeffrey Simmons, they have enough of those inside-outside bigger guys. He's also 25 years old, so even if he's good, are you going to give him a 2nd contract at 29 years old? I think Akeem Mesidor is a good player. I just don't think the scheme or the age make him a fit for the Titans. So I'm totally out on Akeem Mesidor, but not because I think he's bad. I just think the age and the scheme fit are not what the Titans need at all.
The reason why I'm asking is because if you're trying to subsequently fill a need at number 9, who is that guy? And are you filling him with an edge rusher? You know what I'm saying? Unless you're looking at receivers.
Receiver.
Do you then switch to receiver as what you're looking at number 9? And is that Carnell Tate, or not Carnell Tate, he'll be gone. Is that Jordan Tyson? He might be around. Is that Omar Cooper Jr.? He might be around. Is it, one of these other guys that might you're hoping would be there, but would probably be there as the top 10? And then at number 29, do you then look at maybe an edge piece or maybe even a lineman at that point at number 29? You see what I'm saying? So
I agree.
I mean, that would be interesting if someone were to give you 2 1s. You take their 9 and you get their 29, and you give them 4. And of course, like Tyler, since he's the steak and lobster guy, he wants more than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I need my truffle.
A day 3 guy with the truffles and the bacon, all that stuff. Hey, I went to Cane Prime the other day, and we had the bacon with cotton on it. With cotton candy on it. It was actually
Cane Prime. You spare no expense. Yeah. Okay,
See, he's talking about me, steak and lobster. Look at this guy. You know what I mean? But I'll be honest with you. The position that I would really look at if they get to 9 to 12, cornerback. Again, Jermod McCoy, Mansour Delane.
Yeah.
Jermod gone to the Saints from my draft. He's gone. He's not even.
Maybe he is. Maybe he is. But again, I think at that point you're looking at value. I know to some people they just want to fill the depth chart, make the depth chart look good for this year, but it's about the future with this team. They're rebuilding a young team. You can't pass up on a Mansour Delane or a Jermod McCoy just because Alontae Taylor is better in the slot, in my opinion. If you had Alontae Taylor in the slot, Cordell Flott as your field corner, and then Jermod McCoy or Delane as your boundary corner. Like, I think you're in a great spot. So honestly, I would be looking, this would make people so mad, but I would look at cornerback, and at 29, I agree, Brad. I'm looking at O-line. I think, Blake Miller, Max Ian Akor could be there. Maybe a Caleb Lumu could be there at that. Maybe they want to go Emmanuel Pregnone. Maybe they want to go Keelan Rutledge is starting to get, early second round, late first round. I think there is great value at the end of the first round, early second round in the offensive line. I think that's a bucket they have to seriously consider. And if you get 2 first-round picks and you still have 35 after that,
and
you
66
can hit
too. Yeah,
you can hit cornerback or wide receiver at 9. Then you can hit O-line or edge rusher, and then hit whatever you didn't hit out of those 2 things at 35, based on how many people are left at each spot. That's what I do in any draft, fantasy draft, Madden draft, doing these mock drafts. Don't you go, all right, I need a guard and an edge rusher. There are 4 good edge rushers left who I'd be happy with. There are only 2 guards left who I'd be happy with. I'm going to grab one of those guards and hope that one of those 4 edge rushers I like makes it down to my next pick. Like, isn't that how we all do any draft at all? Me and my girl will draft chicken wings sometimes. I'm picking this one first. You get that one next in a snake draft. You got to get the best chicken wings no matter what you're doing. That's how you try to play the value. Hey, I can wait on that, and that's how the game is played. So I think the Titans would be in a great spot at some of those positions we just talked about, even ones that people don't think, it's not edge, it's not wide receiver, O-line, maybe a linebacker. Apparently they might be interested in a linebacker. So I think the trade down just gives you so many options to fill this roster that still is not very good, in my opinion.
Yeah, because as much as the Titans need like stars, they also just need more good players.
Good players.
Yeah. Just like Titan Maximum 239 says, if we get Bailey or Reese at 4, the choice will be guard or wide receiver. Conception or Boston versus Brejan or Rutledge. You can't get both. I want a trade down. So that's looking like a little bit more of an enticing scenario as we kind of discuss, and it gets closer and closer. It's crazy how the storylines and the narrative around what the Titans could do, because they all seem like the ultimate wild card in this draft. They could do anything. Like it's so crazy how we go edge, love, no back to edge, no trade down, maybe a receiver. It's just so crazy how the narrative kind of changes day to day for the Tennessee Titans.
And people get so locked in, Julian. So many people right now are love or bust. If they don't end up, they could trade down. They could get 8 first-round picks in a move. They could do if they don't take Jeremiyah Love, they're not going to be happy. People are just married to Love. And I just think that's just such a silly way to think right now with where the Titans are at as a team, that not because Love isn't a good player worthy, but just like, how could you be mad if they traded down and got multiple first and extra top 100 picks and some of these combinations we could put together of guys that they could take in a trade down scenario? How could you look at all of those and say, nope, Jeremiyah Love or nothing? But it's just, this is the worst draft ever to be closed-minded. There are so many possibilities on the board. They could be good, and they could stick and pick Love. They could take Bailey at 4. They could take Reese there. There are so many paths here that could end in success for the Titans. To think that there's only one path available for them, it just kind of, grinds my gears a little bit.
I got Emmanuel Pregnant going to the Browns at number 24.
I love him.
I've got Vega Oana from Penn State. I got him going to the Steelers at 21. There's a lot of those players in the interior of that offensive line that I think are going to go in the mid-20s. And if the Titans were picking at 29, they can grab one of them for sure.
What if they were at 20? The Cowboys have 12 and 20. What if they do a deal with the Cowboys at 12? They take Jordan Tyson. At 20, they take Vega Ione. Or Ione.
Yeah. I got the Cowboys taking Monroe Freeling at number 20.
He's nasty. What if he's there at 20? You know what I mean? Like, what would the Titans do? You take Jordan Tyson, and then you take Monroe Freeling. You take Jordan Tyson. You take, again, Vega Ione. Like, I would be fine. And people would say a guard in the first round, blah, blah, blah. But, like, that would be an elite outcome for the Titans to fill holes like that and still have 35 and 66 on the board to hit edge and maybe get another interior offensive lineman. Maybe get a linebacker. Like, it solves the math problem in such an easier way.
B-Hop, Mac Jesus, one of the regulars for our show, because you mentioned Eric Williams earlier. He wants you to tell us about Eric Williams from the Cow Gals. That's what he's putting it.
We call him the Cow Gals too. So Eric is a prototypical right tackle, right? Which means you're going to get in a fight. I mean, you're literally gonna get in the fight. It looks like pass blocking, it looks like pass rush, but there's two dudes on that side of the football that they're slugging it out. You know what I mean? So I think that those are the kind of players that help set an identity up front, right? Because you're slightly fearful because they're not wired correctly upstairs. You know what I mean? So you don't know what you're gonna get. We had to know one of those guys. His name was John Runyon. John struck fear in a lot of dudes' hearts because I remember him punching Jerry Ball in the nuts one time. I mean, literally punching him in the nuts. Now, admittedly, he ran off and Jerry chased him, but it was still some dirty type stuff, and that's what right tackles do. Eric Williams couldn't have played left tackle, just wasn't athletic enough, but he's definitely a run blocking, mauling type cat. So that's the prototypical right tackle, and Eric Williams is the poster boy for that.
Yeah, indeed. B-Hop coming in with the stories. All right. Guys, so let me ask you guys this. If the draft is today, who are you taking for the Titans?
Man, I'm moving down. I'm moving down to 7. This is my prediction. My prediction is Commanders are trying to Rashad White, Jerome Ford. No, they need somebody to help Jaden Daniels. And Jeremiah Love is a Swiss Army knife that can do all those things in that Commanders offense, right? So they're going to be not desperate, but they're going to definitely be intrigued to move up to number 4. And then we'll move down to 7. And I got the Titans taking Ruben Bain at number 7. Why? Because Cam said so. Cam said, hey, we're coming to get you. Remember, we told him that last year. We're coming to get you, big dog. And, put it this way. As a quarterback, if you asked him, of course, it's his teammate from college, hey, what do you think about Ruben? Shh. I guarantee he's standing on that table giving all the reasons why you take Ruben Bain at number 7. Number 7 makes sense. 4, maybe not.
No, I'd take Ruben Bain at 4, honestly, but I think they're going to take Jeremiah Love. I think that's what they'll end up doing. It's going to be hard to get a trade back. We've talked about all these different things. I want the trade back. I hope so. It just I can't count on that. So, if I can only realistically count on sticking and picking, even though I want to move back. And I really do think that it's going to be Arvell Reese and David Bailey, or David Bailey and Arvell Reese at 2 and 3. And I think the Titans would take both of those guys over Jeremiah Love. I do. That's my personal opinion. I think the Titans would take Arvell Reese or David Bailey over Jeremiah Love, but they're going to be gone, and then they're going to pivot and they're going to take Jeremiah Love, who's the best player on their board. So that will be my prediction based on the intel that we have right now that, you choose to believe or not to believe, but that's what I'm going to say they do.
Yeah. And
What about you?
I think it's going to be Jeremiah Love. And honestly, if that scenario happens, like Tyler's talking about, where you go Reese and Bailey, it makes the pick that much easier if you are going to stick in pick at number 4, because it's like, well, stick and pick at number 4, Jeremiah Love. I just think the talk is heating up for a reason. And I think that,
put it this way, would I be mad if they stuck and puck?
Stuck and puck? Nope.
If they stayed and picked and took Jeremiah Love, would I be mad? Absolutely not. If they move down to number 7, if they move down, shoot, the best scenario, the one that Tyler laid out, 9 and 29 or 9 and 20. Are you kidding me? 2 first rounders for 4? Have it. And I've got all this draft equity and still got 35 and 66 after that. Man, it's a nasty draft.
Well, actually, real quick before we go, which scenario, whether it be picking edge, Love, or trading down, which one do you think the fan base would be most upset with? Because it seems like you guys are all happy with all 3 potential options, which I'd be okay with all 3 potential options too. But which one is going to get maybe the most, I guess, backlash from the fan base, you think?
What do you think, Tyler?
Man, that is a good question. I would say Bain. I think because there's enough people who don't like the short arms, and the main group of people that would be mad is the people who wanted Jeremiah Love, and they're going to be mad whether they don't take Love, whether it's a trade back or a Ruben Bain. But I think trading back and getting extra draft capital is an easier pill to swallow than taking just one player. Like, yeah, we didn't get Jeremiah Love, but we made this massive trade back and got an extra first-round pick, and blah, blah. That's an easier pill to swallow for the Love nuts than it is, hey, Jeremiah Love was on the board and we just took Ruben Bain instead. You know what I mean? So I would say that taking Ruben Bain would make the fan base more angry than trading back, because Jeremiah Love is not the answer.
Yeah. Made Cam happy. Yeah. But that's
I see the Cardinals taking David Bailey. So David Bailey would be the only reason why I think they'd be pissed off. If he were available and they took Bain over Bailey, I think they'd be upset. Sure. But I don't have David Bailey available to the Titans at number 4. So Ruben Bain at number 4. That'd probably be the most inquisitive pick versus trading down and taking Jeremiah Love.
Yeah, especially with the question marks that we talked about with his arm length and stuff.
Not for me. I'm going to be happy. I'm going to be on
Tyler
the show
Rowland.
Celebrating. Bain is my guy. Let's go.
Don't care what Daniel Jeremiah says. It's all Tyler Rowland, Ruben Bain. He's okay with that. All right. Well, that'll do it for the Titans Squad show today. We want to thank you for listening. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Catch us live here on YouTube twice a week with the Titans Squad show and be an everydayer to the Locked On Titans podcast with Tyler Rowland. All right. For now, I'm Julian Minnesota. That's Tyler Rowland and Brad Hopkins. See you guys later.